Here is the goal: replace anxiety with a process. Once you have a process, you can make decisions without panic. A margin of safety is not just for investing, it is for life. Not long ago, I spoke with a man who was almost 61 years old. He told me he had accepted the idea that he would retire and live a poor retirement. When we looked at his situation, it was not particularly unusual. He did not live an extravagant lifestyle for decades and then wake up surprised. His pattern was the pattern I have seen again and again. When he first started earning, he spent more than he should have for about 5 years, maybe 7. Then responsibility arrived. In his mid-20s, he had his first child, and soon after he had his second. From that point forward, he focused on being the provider and doing the right thing. Over the course of a few decades, he had to reset his career 3 different times. By the time he reached 60, he realized he did not have anything set aside for retirement. Looking back, he could not figure out what had gone horribly wrong. He asked me what. I told him the first move is to start taking money off the table and setting it aside for later. If there is a company 400 wunk, contribute to it. If there is number 400 wunk, start contributing to an IRA. The habit matters. The act of saving first matters. His goals helped. He was not chasing things or status. He was not dreaming of a 6-month cruise and then another one the next year. He wanted more time with his family, his children, and his spouse. That kind of goal is realistic, and because he was engaged and willing to do the work, I believe the outcome could still improve. So I gave him a simple 5-part plan. Temperament matters, especially when progress feels slow. The first part is to assess where you are today and reassess your mindset. 1 out of every 4 people retires without any money whatsoever, according to Federal Reserve data, and about 40% plan on living on Social Security alone, according to Social Security reporting. Those statistics do not solve your problem, but they do change your mindset. When you stop feeling alone, defeat can turn into possibility. But possibility is not enough. This needs to move from an idea to a must. Today is when it starts. You also need personal stock of your timeline. Clarify the age you want to retire. Be realistic about your health and your ability to keep earning. Even 5 years makes a huge difference if you take those years and do something with them. At this stage, your ability to earn even a modest income is your most valuable asset. Have resilience and determination. Most people give up too soon. They try for a few weeks or a few months, then decide nothing changed and quit. Real progress takes time. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and drastically underestimate what they can do in 3 or 5. A disciplined mindset is what carries you through the slow middle. And for many people, a written plan reduces anxiety because it replaces lottery thinking with action. Temperament matters, especially when progress feels slow. The second part is clarity on cash flow. Know the numbers. Many people fear retirement math because they confuse it with the stock market. They see charts and tickers and assume that is what they must master. It is not. Retirement math is simply what is coming in and what is going out. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. So you run a 30-day spending audit, take your credit card statements, your bank statements, and your grocery receipts. Pull any other information you need to see the whole picture. And do not forget your paycheck. If you do not have a copy, print it. You need a paper copy in front of you because you will mark it up on your statements. Understand everything you are spending money on. Put an X next to anything that was useless spending, meaning you bought it but never used it. Circle anything you may not need in the future. Underline what you do need, but where you can buy it at a lower cost with a bit of planning. Then look at your paycheck. How much did you pay in taxes? Do you understand the difference between federal, state, and FICA? Most people see those lines and never really learn them. But learning them is part of getting control. In a typical audit, subscriptions get an X because people pay annually and never use them. Dining out often gets a circle because you may not need it 3 times a week. And grocery receipts often get an underline because a store choice can change the cost dramatically. Sometimes a small change, like buying staples in bulk, can free meaningful cash. This is job 1. Understanding exactly how you spend is the foundation for every other decision. One of the biggest challenges people have is understanding how choices today affect life later. People try to solve it with spreadsheets. Spreadsheets can work, but many people make mistakes. They get a formula wrong, or they are off by 1 cell, or they copy a template without understanding it. So if spreadsheets are not your strength, use a planning tool. A good tool will ask about key parts of your financial life and model the future based on what you input. Your job is to gather the facts and enter them accurately. The tool is not the solution. The clarity is the solution. When you are late to start, small leaks become expensive. The third part is to focus on keeping more of your income. The X, the circle, and the underline are simple tools. They force you to make a decision about each expense. Decision by decision, the leaks become visible. A poor retirement is usually the result of drift. A respectable retirement is usually the result of intentional repetition. Choose repetition. If your current job is unbearable, look for an adjacent move, a competitor, a different role, or a part-time path you actually enjoy. The goal is sustainable income, not suffering. Turning a hobby into income is not fantasy. It is simply shifting time toward something that pays. Even modest extra income can change the plan when you are consistent. If you have been avoiding the numbers, that is normal. Avoidance feels good in the moment, but it is expensive over time. Looking directly at the facts is how you regain control. Do not treat this as a one-time cleanup. Treat it like a monthly routine, the way a good business reviews it. Small decisions compound the same way money does. When you contribute to a 401k or an IRA, you are not just saving money. You are building the habit of paying your future self first. That habit matters more than any clever investment idea. In my experience, clarity reduces anxiety more than any motivational speech. When I talk about cash flow, I mean it literally: what arrives each month and what leaves each month. That is the engine of the entire plan. A 30-day audit is short enough to do and long enough to reveal patterns. 1 week can lie. A full month usually tells the truth. People tell themselves they will start saving when life gets easier. Life rarely gets easier on schedule. So you make the saving automatic and let life happen around it. Do not do the audit in your head. Put paper in front of you. You are trying to remove emotion and replace it with facts. The rule of 72 is useful because it makes compounding concrete. It turns returns into time, and time is the most important input when you start late. Once you save hundreds a month, you have created capital. Capital gives you options. Options are what reduce stress. Understanding basic taxes is not advanced finance, it is basic awareness. When you know the line items, you stop being surprised. When a cost jumps, ask for the reason, then verify it. If the reason does not hold up, change the vendor. That is business, not betrayal. The paycheck matters because it shows the real take. Gross income is not what you live on. The take-home number is what you manage. You do not need to impress anyone. You need to protect your future self. That is the only audience that matters. Staying current does not require you to become an expert. It requires you to learn the basics well enough to avoid mistakes. 15 to 20 minutes of focused learning can save years of regret. If your goal is time with family, you do not need to chase luxury. You need stability. Stability comes from cash flow that you can count on. A planning tool is not a substitute for discipline. It is a substitute for guessing. The discipline still has to come from you. Working longer is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Every extra year is 2 wins. You can add money, and you delay drawing money down. Once you identify the leaks, write down the opportunities to reduce expenses. Even small changes, repeated, can make a big difference. Get creative about reducing expenses. We already hit the low-hanging fruit. Now look for bigger levers. Can you refinance your car? Do you even need a car at all? Cars come with insurance, payments, and maintenance. Those fixed costs add up quickly. And this is where I like to remind people that familiar vendors can quietly raise costs. In my household, a big change came from looking closely at a utility bill. Where we live, natural gas is not shipped into homes, so heating oil is a major cost. We used the same company for more than 10 years. Over a couple of seasons, prices went way up. When I called, they told me it was the market. When I pushed, they told me it was taxes. But when I checked the broader pricing, it did not match the increase they gave us. Our cost had effectively risen about 50% in 2 years. We delayed action because we knew the technicians and the relationship felt comfortable. Then my wife saw a neighbor getting heating oil from another company. We called that company. They were almost half the price. Within a week we switched. The old company asked if they could match the price. I asked how they could match if taxes were the real driver. Silence. Since then we have saved hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes more. Do the work. Many things you think cannot change can change when you shop them. Temperament matters, especially when progress feels slow. The fourth part is strengthening your financial assets and your income going into retirement. Once you plug the leaks, you have extra cash flow. Now you have to decide what that cash flow is for. It is not there to be spent on something else. It is there to go into savings. That is the point. What you do with it depends on your risk tolerance and your situation, but keep the principal clean. Extra cash flow becomes capital when you stop spending it. At the same time, you want to strengthen income. If you plan to retire at 62, would 64 be better if you could save for 2 more years? Maybe it is 65 or 66 or 67. Longer is usually better when you are behind, because you are not drawing down from assets to live. You are still earning and you are still contributing. It does not have to mean staying at the same company. If you cannot stand your job, consider switching to a competitor or shifting into a role you can tolerate. Some people turn part-time work or hobby income into something meaningful. The goal is to keep the engine running. I have seen people turn a small nest egg into a larger one by doing exactly that. Then we use the rule of 72 to make compounding concrete. Take 72 and divide it by your return. That gives you the approximate years to double. At 12%, the long historical 50-year average of the S&P 500, it takes about 6 years to double. That is a high return and hard to meet consistently in the short to medium term. So many people think about 6 to 8%. At 8%, you double your investments every 9 years. At 6%, you double them every 12 years. And remember, you keep adding while it grows. It is not one static number. The pile grows, and then the growth grows. In my experience, clarity reduces anxiety more than any motivational speech. The fifth part is Social Security timing. That combination is hard to beat. Shopping recurring bills is one of the highest return activities most people ignore. Insurance, utilities, phone plans, and subscriptions often have room. The worst answer you can get is no. Progress is often invisible right before it becomes obvious. That is why temperament matters. You stay steady and you let time do its work. A margin of safety is not just for investing, it is for life. A home equity conversion mortgage can help in specific cases, but it can harm in many others. So talk to a qualified professional and understand the downside before you touch it. If you are overwhelmed, simplify, do the audit, cut leaks, automate saving, and protect income. Those 4 actions will carry you a long way. After you identify leaks, you build a short list of actions, cancel what you do not use, reduce what you can live without, and shop the things you must buy. A late start requires humility. You cannot do everything at once, but you can do the next right thing consistently. Advanced tools and advanced options are not the same thing. Tools help you see clearly. Options like a home equity conversion mortgage change the structure of your life, so they deserve caution. Social Security timing is often about peace of mind. A larger monthly check can make the rest of the plan easier. But you have to balance that against the reality of paying bills today. When you are starting late, your job is to reduce fragility. Fragility is what breaks people, not one bad month. A solid plan gives you room to breathe. Many people discover they are paying for convenience they do not value, or they are paying for subscriptions they forgot existed. Those are the easiest dollars to recover. I have learned that simple systems beat good intentions. If spreadsheets work for you, use them. If they create confusion, do not let pride trap you. Use a tool that produces a clear plan from clear inputs. Once you have momentum, you can refine, but do not wait for the perfect plan before you begin. Begin, then improve. A margin of safety is not just for investing, it is for life. Do not assume you can take Social Security and invest it cleanly. If you need it for living expenses, it is not investable capital. And if you keep working, the rules can claw back part of the benefit. The first win is not a bigger account balance. The first win is a clear baseline you trust. Once you have that baseline, every improvement is measurable. Health is part of finance. If you are stronger and sharper, you can earn longer and make better decisions. That is a real advantage. If you follow this plan, the early months may feel slow. That is normal. The goal is to keep going until the curve starts to bend. Do not let it disappear into new habits. Send it to savings automatically. A margin of safety is not just for investing. It is for life. At 8% doubling about every 9 years, you can still see meaningful growth. At 6% doubling about every 12 years, you still make progress, especially if you keep adding the contributions matter as much as the return. Familiarity can make you lazy. That is why the heating oil story matters. Comfort is not the same thing as a fair price. Many people do not have an asset problem as much as they have a cash flow problem. They do not have enough reliable cash flow to cover bills. Delaying Social Security can increase the payment because the system uses a schedule of discounts and credits. The earlier you take it, the smaller the payment. The longer you wait, the larger it becomes. Up to a point, people often ask why not take it early and invest it. The math is not as straightforward as it sounds. How are you going to live? If you need the payment for expenses, you are not investing it. And if you keep working and earn too much, the rules can require you to give part of that payment back. So your decision has to be about stability as much as it is about return. Temperament matters, especially when progress feels slow. Next, improve your physical and mental health to improve your earnings capability. If you are working to change the direction of your retirement, you might as well stack the deck. People who are more physically fit and more mentally acute often have better earnings capacity. Talk to your doctor. Make sure you are up to date on medications and treatment. Try to go into the next earning seasons in strong shape. Then stay current. Learn the basics, retirement accounts, tax strategies, catch-up contributions, and non-retirement savings. It might take 15 to 20 minutes to learn the language, but it can be invaluable when you are planning your future. Knowledge is power when it comes to retirement. Finally, understand that some advanced options exist, but they carry risk. In some specific situations, a home equity conversion mortgage might be a way forward. It can eliminate mortgage payments and provide supplemental income if used appropriately. But it is not my favorite option. Talk to a qualified professional before you touch it. Understand the risks. In my experience, for every one person, it might be good. There are 3 or 4 where it probably is not. If you can measure it, you can change it. Start today. Measure the numbers. Automate what you can. Then let consistency and time do the heavy lifting. Staying current does not require you to become an expert. It requires you to learn the basics well enough to avoid mistakes. 15 to 20 minutes of focused learning can save years of regret. After you identify leaks, you build a short list of actions, cancel what you do not use, reduce what you can live without, and shop the things you must buy. When you create extra cash flow, guard it. Do not let it disappear into new habits. Send it to savings automatically. A late start requires humility. You cannot do everything at once, but you can do the next right thing consistently. A poor retirement is usually the result of drift. A respectable retirement is usually the result of intentional repetition. Choose repetition. If spreadsheets work for you, use them. If they create confusion, do not let pride trap you. Use a tool that produces a clear plan from clear inputs. Shopping recurring bills is one of the highest return activities most people ignore. Insurance, utilities, phone plans, and subscriptions often have room. The worst answer you can get is no. A home equity conversion mortgage can help in specific cases, but it can harm in many others. So talk to a qualified professional and understand the downside before you touch it. A planning tool is not a substitute for discipline. It is a substitute for guessing. The discipline still has to come from you. When you are starting late, your job is to reduce fragility. Fragility is what breaks people, not one bad month. A solid plan gives you room to breathe. Do not treat this as a one-time cleanup. Treat it like a monthly routine, the way a good business reviews its numbers. Small decisions compound the same way money does. Progress is often invisible right before it becomes obvious. That is why temperament matters. You stay steady and you let time do its work. Do not assume you can take Social Security and invest it cleanly. If you need it for living expenses, it is not investable capital, and if you keep working, the rules can claw back part of the benefit. Once you have momentum, you can refine. But do not wait for the perfect plan before you begin. Begin, then improve. If you have been avoiding the numbers, that is normal. Avoidance feels good in the moment, but it is expensive over time. Looking directly at the facts is how you regain control. When you contribute to a 401k or an IRA, you are building the habit of paying your future self first. That habit matters more than any clever investment idea. The rule of 72 is useful because it makes compounding concrete. It turns returns into time. And time is the most important input when you start late.